Every video and episode of the It's Cavalier podcast is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoy the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos, podcasts, member shoutouts, and more. And as always, thank you for watching. Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac, and tonight, just as you read in the title of the episode, we are here to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers schedule, which was released earlier today. And man, there's some good matchups here. A lot of them, to be exact. 82 game slate, as always. You know, you got the cup and whatnot. That'll be something to discuss later on down the line. But the Cavaliers, they got 24 national TV appearances this season. They got 7 games on ESPN, 5 games on NBC / Peacock, 5 Peacock exclusive games, which is crazy to me. And they have additional games on Amazon Prime, 4 to be exact, and 3 on ABC. Just crazy to me. Absolutely insane that this team is going to get as much exposure as they will this upcoming season. And again, this was always probably going to be the case, especially after the season that they had last year. Number 1 finish in the Eastern Conference. Quite disappointing, obviously, in the second round against the Indiana Pacers. You had some injuries, you had players not playing up to expectations, and you had some ice cold shooting. Just a lot of these different things that contributed to the Cavaliers being ousted in the second round. Regardless, the Cavaliers have a giant spotlight on them. And man, some of these matchups, as we're about to highlight here, the Cavs opponents for the 2025-26 season, they will play the Atlanta Hawks 4 total times. They got Boston 3, Brooklyn 3, Charlotte 3 times. We'll talk about why that's important, at least one of those games here in just a minute. You got Chicago 4 times, Dallas twice, Denver twice, Detroit 4 times, you know, JB Bickerstaff and company. The Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry and them boys, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, a lot of big names in that matchup to face off with the Cleveland Cavaliers core 4 and company. The Houston Rockets and Kevin Durant, which we'll talk about a little bit. Indiana Pacers, that doesn't really need any type of description. You know that there's going to be some interesting contest there, some bad blood potentially between the two teams after the second round series that they had. The Los Angeles Clippers twice, the Lakers twice. That is important. We'll talk about that in a minute. The Memphis Grizzlies twice, Miami Heat 4 times, Milwaukee 4 times, you know, Giannis and company, and you know what's going on with him and all these different rumors and the addition of Miles Turner and the departure of Damian Lillard. So many different things, so many different storylines over there. Oh, and Brook Lopez. Let's not forget about him. He departed as well. A lot of different things that occurred in Milwaukee. So those will be interesting matchups to watch play out. The Minnesota Timberwolves, you take them on twice. Anthony Edwards and them boys over there. New Orleans, the Zion and company over there. It's just, it's never ending in terms of Zion Williamson and the potential that he has, but just hasn't been able to stay on the court for an entirety of a season and had a great postseason run, things of that nature. But I'll be keeping my eye on that. A couple of top 5 picks from the draft, the respective draft class from Zion and Darius Garland. You have the New York Knicks, a team that a lot of people believe will be the second seed in the Eastern Conference, right behind your Cleveland Cavaliers. You will take them on a number of times. You will play against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the best team in the West, possibly the entire NBA, the reigning and defending NBA champions. They have given themselves that they earned that title last year against the Indiana Pacers. So they, until further notice, best team in the entire league. Orlando Magic 4 times, some of the additions that they made, Desmond Bain and whatnot. So those would be good ones. Phoenix Suns, a lot of upheaval there. And, you got the departure of Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, obviously out of town now, Devin Booker. You got some pieces over there that you have to kind of figure out. Portland Trail Blazers, you will take them on twice. The Sacramento Kings, you'll take on twice. The San Antonio Spurs, a lot of people, including myself, have that circle because of the marquee matchup between Evan Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year, and Victor Wembanyama, the presumed Defensive Player of the Year prior to his injury. So those two will be noteworthy. The Toronto Raptors, that doesn't really need too much of an introduction in there. You have 2 top 4 picks from the 2021 NBA draft in Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes, 2 all-stars in their own right. They will be forever linked, so I will always keep an eye on that matchup. The Utah Jazz, Lauri Markkanen and company. No more Colin Sexton in Utah. So I'm honestly happy about that for Colin, because that just always felt as if he was going to be in purgatory. Played basically 3 seasons, 3 full seasons in Cleveland. Didn't get a 4th full season, if I'm not mistaken. And, he gets shipped to Utah in the trade that Donovan Mitchell was brought to town in. And just, it's just been disappointment after disappointment over there from a playoff perspective, as they're in a continual rebuild. And last but certainly not least, the Washington Wizards. A lot of young and up-and-coming talent over there certainly will draw my attention. I don't know about you guys, but I'll be keeping my eye on them. But man, a lot of good matchups here. Really, really excited to see what is to come from these games. I mean, and when you dive a little bit deeper, there are a couple of details from this NBA schedule that has been released today that really put a smile on my face. Number one, back-to-backs. The Cavaliers will play 14 total back-to-backs this season. They will go on the road. They will have 4 home and home sets. They'll have 7 home road sets, 1 road set, and 2 road home sets. They had 16 of these last year, guys. Not sure if you're aware. Keep that in mind. I know that the NBA, we always complain about these back-to-backs and games being placed in such a condensed part of a schedule where you're packing like 5 games and 7 or 8 nights. That's brutal. That's tough. And to be able to cut down a little bit on the back-to-backs, 2 less, that's positive, I suppose. Not necessarily something that I'm mad about at all, because again, additional stress from travel and having to put together and string together consistent performances on an individual and team level. That's tough when you have a lot of these. So you have 2 fewer than last season. That makes me happy. That puts a smile on my face. And the way that it has been done, it makes sense. So credit to the NBA schedule makers. Who knows? Maybe this shit is automated, but kudos to them in regard to that. I'm definitely happy about this being the case, though. It should put less stress on them when we know that there are a number of players on this roster that are going to be working their way back from injury, or you're going to have to try and manage. And that brings me to my next point here, NBA Rivalry Week. That will see the Cleveland Cavaliers take on the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte. That will be a nationally televised game on ESPN at 7 p.m., which will be the battle of the Ball brothers. Now, admittedly, when I saw this, I was a little bit taken back, just because I'm like, man, what the hell do the Charlotte Hornets, what kind of rivalry do the Charlotte Hornets and the Cleveland Cavaliers have lately? Like, I know, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, these are some battles. These are some matchups where Charlotte was legitimately bringing it. Scary Terry and Gordon Hayward for a little bit, or a couple names over there in Charlotte that gave Cleveland some fits, but not as of late. It's not necessarily been a contest between these two teams as Charlotte is trying to get it out of the mud. Yeah, they do have some talent over there. They do have some young pieces that are worth keeping an eye on. Perhaps none better than Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball, but this really just boils down to the NBA trying to market the Ball brothers facing off between one another. And LaMelo and Lonzo, regardless of how you feel about either of the two, they still are a big name. The Ball name in the NBA is still a big deal. It is still marketable, and that is what they're attempting to do here. At least that is my guess, because I just could not for the life of me figure out why during NBA rivalry week you're attempting to market this one. You're giving Cleveland this one as their quote unquote rival. Nevertheless, I will be right in front of my TV, glued to it, watching Lonzo. Hopefully, I'm speaking into existence, hopefully taking on his brother. Now, this game right here, this could be an important one for bragging rights in that family, but I mean, Charlotte is Charlotte. Cleveland and Charlotte are in two different tiers, obviously. So there's not much else from a marketing standpoint that you can do than to try and build this one up between the battle of the Ball brothers. That right there brings me to my marquee matchups for this season. That, my friends, and given, there are more. There are some big matchups on this schedule, but these are the matchups that I find most intriguing. These are max marquee matchups at Knicks. That's opening night, if I am not mistaken. That is the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the New York Knicks. Again, a team that many people believe is going to be the second best. Hell, some people out there, especially if you're a New York fan, believe that these two teams will be battling it out in the Eastern Conference. But a lot of people out there, especially in New York, believe that this New York team is superior to the Cavaliers. I've seen it. I've heard people say it. I'm not going to put no elbows, no fingers or anything like that, but I can definitely tell you there are a lot of people out there that would take New York in a series over Cleveland, which for the life of me, can't understand why. I do believe Cleveland is the better team, deeper team, and has continuity on their side. But to me, this is a big one. Confidence right out of the gate. Now, it's important to know, no Darius Garland. Likely, presumably. This is just me speaking in hypotheticals. I do not know anything, so do not quote me. I'm not connected like that, but I can tell you that I do not believe Darius Garland will be ready for that matchup. It just does not seem likely, at least in my estimation, my opinion. We'll have to see. But even without the services of one Darius Kennard Garland, I still believe the Cavaliers have more than enough firepower to get the job done. It should still be a tightly contested one. And I'm not going to rule out Cleveland taking an L right out of the gate. But I believe in my heart of hearts that Cleveland has more than enough to dispatch this team. That's just where I sit out with this. We'll have to see what lineup, especially in regard to the starters, that Kenny rolls with. Is he going to go with Lonzo? Is he going to go with Craig? Is he going to do something crazy? It's not necessarily crazy because we've seen it, but is he going to roll Sam Merrill out there in a starting lineup beside Donovan Mitchell? Or Max Strus and DeAndre Hunter going to start? Is Jalen Tyson going to draw start? Who knows? I'm just saying there's a lot of possibilities here. And what better way to start things off? What better litmus tests do you get than to face off against what is likely to be your biggest challenger in an Eastern Conference that's kind of in disarray right now? So we'll have to see with that one. Then the Houston Rockets on November 19th. Why is that big, you ask? Well, one, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is a Houston Rocket. We've seen videos of Evan Mobley facing off against Kevin Durant at in the offseason. It happens. Guys have one-on-one matchups. You get these clips, these highlights and whatnot, and it's always fun. It's always fun as a fan to watch these things play out. But Kevin Durant in his new digs against the Cleveland Cavaliers, you got some big pieces over there in Alperen Sengun. a lot of names, right? A lot of big names in that matchup, and I can't wait to see how that plays out. The Indiana Pacers, that is the first matchup against them, one of four on the schedule, November 21st. That will be at home, and you'll notice that most of these matchups that I have highlighted, all but one of them are going to take place. Well, two, because you have two with the Mavericks, but let's say that most of these are going to take place at home. But against the Indiana Pacers, assuming that in that matchup, Darius Garland is close to full strength or close to coming back, that should be a really tightly contested battle against a team that made it all the way to the NBA Finals and was just it just came up short. The Tyrese Halliburton of it all. We cannot forget that. Tyrese suffering his injury, that's going to put a damper on it. But nevertheless, oh, and Miles Turner. We can't forget about that. Nevertheless, this should be a tightly contested battle between two teams that probably going to have it out for one another. The San Antonio Spurs, December 5th. I already mentioned Victor Wembanyama versus Evan Mobley in a battle of two perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidates, two emerging offensive talents, two all-star level players, and guys who are probably going to be flirting with top 10, top 5 status here in the next couple of years. So that one should be one for the ages. And if you haven't already seen, I posted their lone matchup against one another. Wemby's been in the league 2 seasons now, but for what it's worth, they've only matched up one prior time, and Evan Mobley got the better of him, limiting him to paltry numbers in terms of field goal percentage, while also putting up good stat line versus him in that one game. So I cannot wait to see that one. You have the first matchup against the OKC Thunder on January 19th, just a month later. That should be a big one. You got the defending champions, two teams that I think a lot of people, including myself, would love to see in a NBA Finals matchup. But that requires both teams to make it there, right? That requires OKC to make it back, which they certainly have the talent to do after going all in basically this offseason and retaining top-tier talent, and the Cavaliers being able to exercise some of those demons and getting into the finals, right? Not only making it past the second round in Eastern Conference Finals, not only making it past the second round, but making it past the Eastern Conference Finals against whoever they could potentially face there. So that is not going to be any cakewalk, no walk in the park. You have the Los Angeles Lakers. Why is that one important? Well, my friends, that is the date that LeBron James makes his only regular season visit to Cleveland. That is a big one. That will be on ESPN at 7 and could be one of the last times. And this is probably why it's most important. It could be potentially one of the last times that we actually get to see LeBron play in Northeastern Ohio. This is on a Wednesday night. I do feel like they probably could have moved this to a weekend night a little bit later, but for what it's worth, I don't think people care, especially if you're in Cleveland. You're going to tune into this one because it could, like I said, be the last time that you get the opportunity to see this man play in Northeastern Ohio, in Cleveland, at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse to be exact. Why do I say that? Because you never know. LeBron is getting older. He's going into, what is this, 22nd season? It's just in pure insanity. Who knows when this man is going to decide to call it a career? Hell, he could win a title, and I'm not saying this is likely, but he could win a title this year somehow and maybe decide he's going to hang him up. He got to play with his son. Maybe he wants to stave off retirement until his other son makes it. But for what it's worth, this could potentially be the last time that you get the opportunity to watch this man play in Cleveland against Cleveland. So that's a big one. And keep in mind, LeBron, he's from a statistical standpoint, he's been great against Cleveland. In the 11 matchups that he has faced off against Cleveland since departing for the second time, he has put up averages of 28.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 7 assists, and has a record of 7-4. And he is 4-2 when playing on the road. That is playing in Cleveland. That is going to be one of the best matchups that we see this year from this team, or from these two teams. And then the Dallas Mavericks. You have a back-to-back with them on March 13th. Well, not really a back-to-back. You have a March 13th game and then a March 15th game. So one of those home and away types of things. Not necessarily a back-to-back, but home and away against an opponent that you're going to see twice in a 3-day span. So why is that important? You guys already know. Presumably Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, and a number one overall pick from the 2025 NBA draft, Cooper Flag. Yo, that is a dangerous squad over there, assuming that they are able to stay and remain healthy. That's a dark horse candidate over there in that Western Conference. If Cooper Flag is as talented as people believe that he can be, if he can put together the type of season out of the gate that a lot of people believe that he can do, and Kyrie Irving, if he can stay on the court, we already know what type of talent he is. Anthony Davis, two-way force out there. The same thing can be said of him. As long as those guys can stay healthy, and they got some good supporting talent over there, they're going to be a dark horse candidate in that West. You can call me crazy, but I definitely believe they have the talent to get it done, assuming they stay healthy. And it's kind of the same thing with the Cavs, but on a lesser extent, right? You're just hoping that these guys can remain healthy because that is going to make or break how successful they can be come the playoffs. But these are some good ones, man. The NBA schedule makers did a good job with this one. And usually I have some complaints, but coming off a 60-plus win season for this team, you really weren't expecting too much. At this point in time, all I'm really looking for from Cleveland, because it's not about the regular season anymore. All I'm really looking for from this team is to stay healthy. You just got to stay healthy. I don't really think that anybody cares about the success that this team is going to have come by the regular season, in the regular season rather. The things that you're going to be looking for are lineups, right? You're going to be experimenting with your lineups and your rotations. If you are Kenny Atkinson, you're going to see what specific players can look like in specific situations, whether that be in clutch time, or we saw Darius Garland, man, he was brilliant in clutch time last year, leading the entire NBA in plus minus in the clutch. And he was one, if I'm not mistaken, of 11 players to score over 100 points in the clutch. Very, very efficient when doing so as well. All of that said, Kenny Atkinson is going to have to fine-tune it all in the regular season, especially with Darius coming off of surgery, especially with managing specific players, finding out what you have on that bench that does not have Ty Jerome to rely on anymore. You're going to look at a lot of different things to try and play around with before the postseason starts. Or rather, I think you should probably start figuring out what you have, or you should be done figuring out what you have come the All-Star break, right? You should really be trying to fine-tune things and get it into that next gear so that you're peaking at the right time. Because we've seen a lot of teams kind of stink it up or just kind of back their way into the playoffs and then go on these miraculous runs. We've seen it across all sports, all spectrums. I mean, the teams that come to mind for me are the New York Giants, right? You won 2 Super Bowls basically like that. But for Cleveland, it's going to be about tinkering. It's going to be about finding what lineup combinations work. It's going to be about management. And the player that comes to mind when you think about that most is probably Lonzo Ball, because he is an addition that frankly, I feel is going to be a big time piece. As long as he stays healthy, as long as you keep Lonzo Ball upright come the playoffs, I think he has the potential to be a game impacting piece, a game wrecker out there on both ends of the floor. Not necessarily because of efficiency, but because of what he brings to the table. Excellent in transition, especially as a facilitator. We know that he is an upper level defender out there, especially on the perimeter, even with some of the sapped athleticism after the injuries and the subsequent surgeries and whatnot. We know that he is never a player that's likely going to excel as a driver of the basketball driving kick guy, but what he can do out there is be impactful off ball as a three-point shooter. And I'm throwing all those percentages from last year in Chicago, where he didn't play a full season, obviously, out the window. It was his first time playing basketball in 2 years. I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna see what he has after a full off season of work with Cleveland. We'll see what he brings to the table in terms of the percentages. And even if he doesn't jump right out of the game efficient, I'll live with it as long as he's impacting the game in other ways, namely as a facilitator, a defender, and on the glass. This is an underrated area that Lonzo brings to the table. So, in injury management, minutes management, whatever you want to call it, load management, that's the name of the game truly for Alonzo Ball and a number of other players on this roster. Whether you want to put Darius in there, help Donovan, right? We've seen this team kind of have to ride Donovan at points, and him just kind of being uh, less than energized, not necessarily his normal self entering a playoffs. That was not the case last season. I have to clarify that, right? He was fine entering the playoffs to a degree, but I just think that with the injuries to Darius, with the injury to Evan and DeAndre Hunter, Sam Merrill at a point, you rode Donovan into the ground. And Donovan has to get out of his own way sometimes with his hero ball mentality when things break down and try and look to get Evan Mobley the ball a little bit more and spread the ball and rock around. But at the end of the day, if you can keep these guys healthy, and listen, Kenny Atkinson and company and that staff, for what it's worth, they did do a pretty good job of load managing throughout the regular season last year, right? Career low in minutes across the board for a number of players out there. But that all turned to shit once guys suffered these fluke injuries, and that's I'm gonna call a lot of them fluke injuries, just because of how they happened. Right, the toe sprain, that was something that Darius was dealing with already, and got re-aggravated come the postseason against Miami. Missed a number of games, wasn't himself obviously on the floor. You could tell that. Had subsequent surgery once the offseason hit. DeAndre Hunter, right? The dislocated or sprained thumb, whatever you want to call it, whatever name designation that you want to give that injury, that was a fluke injury right there. That's not necessarily something I think you can count on him suffering again. It was one of those things. Evan Mobley spraining his ankle. These are things that I think you can't plan for. There's no amount of preparation that you can have for. You can try and work out, stretch and the little minute details. And I think I had CJ Miles on was pointing to this on the last episode, last stream that I had. There are things you can try, but you're never going to be able to truly prevent injury from occurring, especially some of the types of injuries that Cleveland had last postseason. Some of them just occur. It's just bad injury luck. And so you're hoping that the law of averages kind of evens out here and that guys can remain healthy come the playoffs. Because I give a damn. Like if you suffer some type of bruise or a nick or some type of small injury, bumps and bruises out there during the regular season, as long as you're able to come back by the playoffs, as long as you're able to get back into a rhythm, that's fine with me if you miss time during the regular season. Because at this point, as long as this team puts together a top four finish, that's really the bar for me in the regular season. Yes, I would love to win a ton of games. Yes, I would love to see this team repeat as number one seed in the East. Yes, I would like the 60 plus games. But honestly, as long as they get a top three, top four finish in the East, I'm fine. I'm honestly okay with that because I think you need to use this season to see what works and what doesn't, what player has the game and what guys don't, right? We're talking about players like Jalen Tyson coming in and potentially playing a bigger role than he did in his rookie year. We're talking about a now or never type of season for a Craig Porter Jr., who is likely going to be tapped to fill in for a lot of those point guard duties in the absence of a Darius Garland, of a Ty Jerome. We're talking about whether or not Lonzo Ball can stay on the court for the duration of a season. We're talking about the same types of things for Larry Nance Jr. coming back to Cleveland in his first go around with the squad. We're talking about whether or not a player like Dean Wade could finally show us some type of consistent confidence out there, a 3-point stroke that just doesn't fail him. We're talking about whether or not Naquan Tomlin deserves an opportunity to be a rotation player at a certain point this season. There are so many different things that this Cavs team has to figure out, and the good news is that they have enough talent to be able to work through things, right? If it costs them a couple of games during the regular season, I'm okay with that as long as they have have they earned themselves a top 3, top 4 seed in the East. I can live with that. Like, if you win 55, 56, 57 games, I'm okay. I don't think any team is gonna win with the way that the East is shaking out. Honestly, I do not believe any team is gonna win 60 games. And I know maybe that sounds crazy because Boston is gonna be in some sort of gap year. I know that uh, Indiana, they're going to be going through it with what happened to Halliburton. We know that Milwaukee's going to have to try and work through some things over there. We know that Miami is not the same, and that Atlanta, with the introduction of some of these pieces they have over there, namely KP, getting Jalen Johnson back, there's a lot of things. Orlando, the list goes on and on. But the East, outside of New York and Cleveland, and hell, I mean, if you want to throw Philly in there, because Philly has talent, assuming these guys are healthy, and that's the big question, right? Because the news coming out of Philly is that Embiid and that knee is not great. So you really don't know. You really don't know past the Knicks and Cleveland. So, do I believe that a team is going to win 60 plus games in the East? No, I don't. But as long as Cleveland specifically is able to walk away with a top 4 finish, everything else is icing on the cake. I just want to see guys excel, improve. I want to see who has, who doesn't, so that we can figure out whether or not we need to move on from specific players. And the one player that comes to mind the most in that regard is Dean Wade, right? He is entering the 2025-26 season on an expiring contract. That means that he will either be moved at the deadline, he will be let to walk at the end of the season, or he'll he'll resign. Those are the 3 outcomes right there. I just do not think that if I was a betting man, I'd say this is Dean Wade's final season in Cleveland, but I'm not going to rule anything out. The miraculous could happen. Should he play a big role in bringing Cleveland a championship? Hell, maybe they decide they're going to try and keep him because he is, believe it or not, still pretty valuable in terms of the defensive versatility that he offers you, the hypothetical 3-point production that he can offer you out of that front court, and the positional versatility. So, Dean, will he be back? Will he be traded? I don't know. These are the types of things that I am hoping to find out during the stretch run of the 2025-26 season. And I'm glad that we finally have these teams here and we know who we're going to play, where we're going to play, how many times we're going to play. I'm glad that we know all of these things now. Again, once more, these are the opponents. You got quite a bit of action going on here. And I think I forgot one team, the Philadelphia 76ers. I think that was the one team that I forgot to put on here. But yeah, they will take on Indy. They'll take on Philly 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, in addition to some of these other games here. But I'm happy, man. I'm happy to see that this team is finally getting the exposure that they should have been getting all along. And I'll tell you what, they have to be able to live up to the expectations. They have to be able to live up to the expectations of being the best team in the East. So many different question marks surrounding the rest of the East. They got to be able to just take the reins here. And I cannot wait to see what happens. I'm super excited about the addition of Lonzo Ball. I'm super excited about the addition of Larry Nance Jr. You guys know how happy I am about those two, but it doesn't mean anything right now. It does not mean anything on paper. It does not mean anything in these podcasts. It does not mean anything in preseason and regular season when it's going to count the most. And you guys know I'm a huge proponent of the journey. I appreciate the journey. I appreciate everything that it takes to get there. But at the end of the day, after watching this team take step after step after step, only to be stymied in the second round and back-to-back seasons, it's now or never, right? It is a now or never type of season for this team. And if they don't at the very least make it to the finals, I think that I'm going to view it as a failure. And my opinion at the end of the day is not, it doesn't matter But I would have to think that the Cleveland Cavaliers as an organization, Kobe Altman and company, after some of the contracts that they've handed out, after some of the moves that they've made, and I get it, like poor injury luck can't happen, and that's what has happened over the last couple of seasons. Still, though, I think if they don't make it to at least the finals, I think that there's going to be big time moves. And this all starts against the New York Knicks, right? Game one, you get a big matchup. You're not going to have Darius Garland, presumably. You have to be able to make up for it. You got to be able to make up for it. So I cannot wait to see what they end up doing. And man, should be one hell of a season. Should be one hell of a season for this team. And I'll leave it there. As always, tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out, you know I can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you said invite. If you want to support the pod in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon. You can do so on YouTube if you want for as little as $1 a month. Support your favorite content creators. Go Cavs.